10x Protocols has just launched on the Venture Exchange. The company stakes digital assets to earn blockchain rewards, and they're also building a platform for third-party participation. We've invited founder Matt Sabula to walk us through the current state of crypto and to talk to us about what makes 10x's approach different. Matt, first of all, welcome to our program.
Thanks for having me.
Let's start with talking about the current state of crypto as we are here in December 2025, and also talk to us about what's changed since the last bull run.
Absolutely. So this year's been incredibly important for crypto. I've been involved in crypto since 2013. And if you had told me what happened this year in terms of fundamental improvements for the ecosystem, for regulations, for the technology, for the ability to process hundreds of thousands, if not millions of transactions per second on these blockchains, I wouldn't have believed it. So this year there's been a bit of a watershed in the sense that we finally have clear regulation coming out thanks to the Genius Act that was passed recently this summer. We've got companies from everyone from Visa to BlackRock to PayPal to the NASDAQ experimenting with everything from payments to peer-to-peer trading to tokenization of stocks, equities, real-world assets. And there's tons of experimentation going on within the crypto community as well. So it's been an incredible year in terms of all these fundamental improvements, and I think it's setting up for an incredible 2026.
Kind of leads into my next question, which is why will 2026 matter? How quickly can some of these improvements you just discussed see even more material leveling up next year?
Well, next year I think is really being set up very well because again, all these things have just recently improved. The regulation just passed in the summer, and it's almost like the world is ready for crypto to really take off. There's, three key things happening that are all kind of coming together and clicking together. One, as I said, is the regulatory piece. Now it's clear what the rules of the road are, what you can do, and how you can leverage this incredible technology to improve the world economy and global payments and all those things that I mentioned. Secondly, the technology has improved. So Solana, SWE, and SAY, these high throughput protocols that we really like and we focus on, are a game changer in terms of allowing all types of applications that previously were not possible with other blockchains because the costs were too high. You weren't able to create as many transactions per second as is demanded by most of these applications. And finally, society. Society is in a place where, for better or for worse, a lot of folks are losing faith in institutions they used to hold dear. And, banks, governments, these types of organizations are kind of losing credibility with a lot of folks. And so crypto's basically providing an alternative to that, a new way to raise capital, a new way to transact, a trustless peer-to-peer network is really optimal for a large part of the human population who's losing faith in institutions that used to be really important and are losing kind of credibility.
Mm-hmm. Why go public now instead of, let's say, I don't know, a few months down the road, and why the Canadian market?
Yeah, so well. First of all, we're Canadian. We've been in Canada. I've been in crypto since 2013. We started a company called Cryptive back in 2013 with two of my co-founders that work with me. So we've got a lot of experience in Canada. We love Toronto, and we wanted to make it here. But to go public, I think we see a huge gap that needs to be filled. The world understands that crypto is important, that these protocols are changing business, payments, all these things that I mentioned earlier. But in crypto, there is a bit of an issue in terms of transparency. And that's why being a public company brings a lot of transparency to our investors and to the world. And, it's my belief that the world of crypto or DeFi is merging with the world of traditional finance or TradFi. And as those two worlds blur, there's more and more interesting opportunities that can be taken advantage of by a firm such as ourselves that has a foot in both camps and really understands the crypto, but can also deliver transparency and great returns for our investors in this new world where the two worlds are kind of colliding.
If we can move on to talking about money, you've recently raised 30 million, about 80% of it in crypto rather than cash,
Yeah.
while also saying that you actually want to make some strategic acquisitions with this funding. What are those acquisitions?
Yeah, so we were very lucky to raise capital this summer with thanks to the support of our great shareholders and our investors. So we raised 30 million, and a large chunk of that was in crypto. But in crypto, you can also use stablecoins. So the majority of that was actually in stablecoins, and this was actually one of its first of its kind, if not the first of its kind, transaction in terms of allowing investors to use crypto assets to invest in a company such as ours. So we're proud to kind of be on the leading edge of innovation and the ability to, again, merge those two worlds of crypto and TradFi. And what we'll be doing with this capital is, fundamentally at a high level, what our business does is we support emerging blockchain protocols such as Solana, SWI, and SE. So we identify the protocols that we believe in, that we think have the capability of changing the world, and we support them by going out and acquiring those tokens, putting those on our balance sheet, and then using our infrastructure to validate transactions on these networks, support these networks, and earn a reward for doing so. So that's the core of our business right there.
Well, when researching TenX, one of the constant things that come up is you're saying that the one thing that's constant in this market is change.
Yes.
So how have you built your business model to be able to do that moving forward?
Yeah, so that's kind of the core of our DNA. As I mentioned before, we've been in crypto since 2013. That was before Ethereum was made. That was before any of these protocols existed. And back then I would go to meetups in Toronto and in San Francisco, and I was lucky enough to meet a young man named Vitalik Buterin when he was creating this concept of Ethereum, which built on top of Bitcoin but created a Turing complete protocol that basically allowed for much more complicated transactions. And that created everything from DeFi to the ICO, the ability to create make capital formation on chain. And so that experience and investing in Ethereum in the ICO and building with it taught us that it's really important to get out and understand the bleeding edge of crypto, the emerging protocols that exist, the emerging applications that are being experimented with and embraced by the community, and kind of get your hands dirty. Get out there, buy the assets, tinker with them, build on them, meet the builders that are actually out there creating innovative technology. And that's how you can really generate a lot of value, by being out there and exposed to the bleeding edge of crypto.
So Matt, what should investors look forward to in your first quarter as a public company?
Yep. So we're excited to get going. We've got a bit of a war chest that we raised earlier this year, and we'll be deploying that war chest into the protocols that we support. And so they should look forward to a lot of great announcements of new partnerships that we're going to be forming, and we're excited to embrace the protocols that we currently support, and perhaps more that are going to be coming along early next year.
Okay. So your TNX or TNX.V on the venture exchange.
Yeah.
All right. Matt, thank you for being here.
Thanks so much.